Hey, what's up, guys? Getting on Campionato TV here to talk about a little bit of football. Mainly the Champions League final coming up on Saturday, PSG versus Inter. But before I do that, I wanted to congratulate Napoli for winning the Scudetto. My family's from the Naples area and the Campania region, and also the Basilicata region. So, I had a family members there, and they were texting me on WhatsApp and all that stuff, and it's really great. I mean, Napoli, they probably have one of the best, if not the best, fan bases. They epitomize what being a calcio, a football fan is all about. They don't like soccer. They don't like the sport. They live the sport. There's people that like the sport and there's people that live the sport. And people that live the sport, they're eating, breathing, sleeping, and talking about it every day. And I consider myself one of those people. If you talk to people that are around me on a daily basis, in the morning, I'm thinking about football. All day I think about it. And then at night, I watch, games, footage, interviews, whatever I could, with the little time I have. So congratulations to Napoli. I was happy to see that Conte's going to remain there. And, I hope they do some good things. I heard that De Laurentiis is going to, give them a good budget to buy some players. And I hope they build on it. And I hope that the Napoli, it continues to grow. It's, it's one of the, best run clubs in Italy financially. They, so we got to applaud De Laurentiis. And they're seeing the fruits of the labor, from when he bought the team. I mean, how many times did Napoli that they got so close to winning the Scudetto and they didn't? And so they're seeing the fruits of all those years of hard work and labor. And, so congratulations to them. I thought it was so epic. When McTominay scored that first goal and all this flares around the stadium and in the stands, just amazing. It's just, oh my God, it's amazing. And then Lukaku finished it off. So it's amazing. I'm happy, for the Campania and the South, and I'm happy for Napoli. I'm happy Conte staying there. And, Serie A is phenomenal. Now, I heard today Allegri's going back to AC Milan, and, it's great. So congratulations to Napoli, well deserved. I want to see Conte do something in the Champions League. Anybody that's followed Conte, he hasn't been successful in the Champions League. And that may be by design. Maybe he makes a decision with the board and the management of the club that, we're just going to focus on one competition because we don't have a deep enough squad. And I think there's some validity to that because, in the modern day football, these competitions, the Coppa Italia, Supercoppa Italiana, the Serie A, the Champions League, now, you got the Club World Cup, whatever. It's a lot of football, and to expect these players to play all these games, it's not, realistic. It's a very taxing sport in the running and everything, So, I want to see Conte do some stuff on this, in the Champions League, and, hopefully get some good pieces that he likes. I would like to see Chiesa go to Napoli because I think he's riding away in the Premier League thing over there. And, I think they got De Bruyne. I wasn't, crazy about that because the guy is old. But, I realize if you're going to be playing multiple competitions, you need, backups at different positions, especially the midfielder position. So he may be a good asset off the bench, So, I'm happy to see that ADL, he's not making the same mistake that he did with Spalletti a couple years ago. I don't even know if it was his mistake because we don't know the details, but I think Spalletti wanted, a raise or something like that. But I also heard that Conte's going to get a raise. So I'm glad to see that the Napoli is becoming a force in the, in football, and is one of the best teams in the world. But like I said, they need to keep this momentum going. I hope that De Laurentiis could get the new stadium too, because though the stadium is I like those kind of stadiums, the old bowls, a very nostalgic stadium. They need a new stadium to continue to grow the club, because they're not going to be able to grow the club with that kind of stadium. You're fighting a losing battle. You know what I mean? Like, it's really lost money, at this point. You have 70,000 fans in the stadium, and there, I have not been there for quite a while, but my father, he's been there, a couple years ago, and there's food trucks on the outside of the stadium, which when you go in the stadium, the food trucks are outside of the stadium. And those food trucks, I doubt they're giving any money to Napoli or whoever owns the stadium. So they need to get a new stadium, and they need to, make a nice modern stadium with the amenities that the fans, they could get something to eat in a stadium. They have, different, things to do to help make more revenue. Not to rip off the fans, but make more revenue. You have all these people and all this traffic. There's lost money. I'm sure somebody would want to buy something in the stadium. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. So congrats to Napoli and to the teams that made European competition. Bologna, Roma, I think Fiorentina, right? I think Fiorentina did as well. I think Lazio missed out, and they ended up firing the coach, which is kind of sad, because Lazio started out like really, really strong this year under Baroni over there. And then obviously you got the Champions League qualifiers, Juventus, Atalanta, Napoli, and Inter. Oh, and congrats to Max Allegri for coming back to AC Milan. I think that's a good move. He's a stable guy. He's a stable coach, and he could stable the ship over there at AC Milan. I think that needs Italian DNA, and I'll be looking for them to get some, with their new sporting director, to get some good Italian blood in there, mixed with other pieces, and to make a good charge next year to get back to where AC Milan should be. Awesome stuff going on for the league and for the teams, and look forward to it. But the big thing here is the Champions League final, PSG versus Inter. And from what I've been reading, and I understand, the Inter Milan is at full force. Summer, Pavard, Acerbi, Bastoni, Dumfries, Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, DeMarco, Lautaro, and Thuram are expected to start. And on the contrary, I don't really know that much about Paris Saint-Germain, besides, Donnarumma. I know Donnarumma, I know Hakimi, because he used to play for Inter. I know Fabian Ruiz used to play for Napoli. I know this Kvaratskhelia used to play for Napoli. So, I mean, that's 4 players right there that, we are very familiar with. Fabian Ruiz, Hakimi, Kvaratskhelia, and Donnarumma. So, I mean, that's about half their team over there. And this guy Dembele over here, I wouldn't say that, we're, unaware of this guy. I mean, the Italian national team has played the French team. So, yeah, that's kind of what it's looking like. And I expect Inter to to do, I expect Inzaghi to have his, plan for subs. You're definitely going to probably see Augusto for DeMarco. You're going to see Fratesi. You're probably going to see Zielinski. Maybe, you'll see a striker replacement. I don't know. Maybe Flautauro's is tired. I know against Barcelona, they took him out, and I think they put Taremi in there. So that's what I think you're going to see for the subs. The rest of the players, they're going to play the whole game. I think that, there's some things that are concerning me about this game as I continue to absorb the information out there. And this is kind of stupid stuff, but, they're saying that, that every time a game has been played at the Bayern, that it's always been a team that they never won the Champions League, so that would play into Paris. And again, this is just, Italians are superstitious, so I kind of like let the stuff bother me. So that's one thing. And they were talking about the Napoli connection, between Paris and Napoli, with there's Napoli players like Fabian Ruiz and Kvaratskhelia, and the fact that Napoli beat Inter this year for the Scudetto. So I just don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen over here. You don't know. The ball's round, anything can happen. It's gonna, anything can happen, so basically, in my opinion, it's 50-50 down the middle. But, I don't know if I can make a prediction, but I really think that, when you look at the Paris Saint-Germain squad over there, like I told you, they got Donnarumma. He's a very good goalkeeper. They got Hakimi, Kvaratskhelia, and the Ruiz. And, just watching these players from the Serie A, I really, not really that concerned about them. You know what I mean? And I don't know really that much about those other players on that team, in the midfield, or, I know there's Dembele. Yeah. I'm not really that concerned about those guys on the field. Donnarumma obviously is a fantastic goalkeeper. As I alluded to on another podcast, that, I feel like if you look at all the results that Paris had this Champions League campaign, they primarily played English teams. Their wins were primarily against English teams. That's kind of how it unfolded for them. But, I know there's English teams, they have different, nationality coaches, but an English team, they still have, that DNA of high intensity, a lot of running, I got to score, guns blazing. And, I think, I don't know, I think that plays into Paris. That plays into them. You really got to ask yourself, if Paris had to play Bayern Munich and Barcelona, would they be in the final today? I don't know. They played the Liverpool. Well, they played the Manchester City and they beat them. That was, Manchester City was on a, Inter played them in the beginning when they had Pedri or whatever his name is. And they were at full strength. But after that, they went downhill, and, Paris beat them. And, then they went to play Liverpool. And, like I told you guys in a podcast earlier this year, that guy Slot is an idiot. Nah, he's not an idiot, but I'm kind of still mad because he never plays Chiesa. But I think he has something against Italians. But anyways, I do not think the guy is, a high-level coach yet. He is not. He hasn't won anything. So for a coach like Inzaghi or Luis Enrique or, what's his name? Flick from Barcelona, or Pep Guardiola, these guys will eat him alive, man. So for somebody like, Luis Enrique, a Champions League winner, I would have, put my money on him to get across that, and he did. And then they went to play Aston Villa, and again, it was a outmatch coach, in my opinion. Luis Enrique was better than the Aston Villa coach, but they still almost lost in the second leg after they were down by a lot. After Aston Villa was down by a lot. And then they went to the final against Arteta, which he really hasn't won anything. And, in Arsenal, historically, they haven't won anything ever in, Europe. And so I think that, those teams are tough, but I think that it favored Paris Saint-Germain. Ask yourself, if you had to put money on Paris going through Bayern and Barcelona, do you think they would have made it to the final? I don't know. I think they probably would have beat Feyenoord, but I don't know that they would have beat those guys. So yeah, but I think it's a 50-50 match. I think that anything can happen, the ball's round. I just pray that Inter wins. I mean, these guys, they were there, 2 years ago, almost win the thing. I think if they had Thuram then, they would have beat Manchester City because Lukaku over there, he missed some stuff, as we all know. But I think the Inter team is rested. They've been resting this team. I think Pavard's going to be back, and people, they say that they gave up a lot of goals against Barcelona, but Bisek was there, and Pavard wasn't. I think that there may be something there, that they're a better unit. I think the team is rested, and I think they're hungry. I think they're hungry like wolves. And, they got to win this game, man. I mean, they've not won anything this year. And, it's been way too long since we've won the Champions League. And we've won the Europa League, we've won the Conference League, and we got to win the Champions League. We got to do it. This is the end of a cycle for Inter, man. I mean, these guys like Mkhitaryan, Acerbi, Darmian. I mean, these guys are, they're not going to be around. I mean, and, there's talk about this Inzaghi thing. I don't know if he's going to be the coach. I mean, I heard Saudi Arabia is giving him a lot of money. Donnarumma also, going back to Donnarumma, if the game goes to penalty kicks, I don't know that they're going to win, Inter. Also I think that, they got to be smart on how they take shots on Donnarumma and not waste shots from taking them at the top of the box. If Donnarumma's going to save that, they got to go in there. They got to do quick passes and put it in the goal. So I talked a little bit about the PSG squad. Now I talk a little bit about the Inter squad. One thing, that you probably hear a lot of is, look at the Inter squad. There's a lot of experience there. I mean, Inzaghi made it to a Champions League. He's played in a lot of competitions. He's won the Scudetto. Looking at the front line over there, Thuram, he played in the FIFA World Cup final, I believe. And Lautaro played in a FIFA World Cup. I think he won. Yeah, he did win the World. Yeah, he did. He was on the World Cup winning team. He also won a Copa America. Now you go down the line. DeMarco and Barella, he's a European champion. Denzel Dumfries, he's he's played in big games. I think the Holland, they went to the semifinals at Euros this past summer, and in the World Cup they I think they went to the quarterfinals, and they lost to Argentina. Mkhitaryan and Çalhanoğlu, those guys, they've been around. Turkey, and I believe Mkhitaryan's Albania. DeMarco, he's a big time player. The guy, though he wasn't on the Italian national team for the European Championship, he has been in the fold recently and has done big things for them. You go to the back line. Acerbi's played in a Champions League final. DeMarco played in a Champions League final. Bastoni, he was on the European champions, Italy squad. So was Acerbi, and they both played in the Champions League final. Then you got Pavard, he's a French international. So there's a lot of freaking experience on that team, man. That a lot of experience in big games. I can't say that's the same, but from the management level all the way to the players. Now go and tell me, on the Paris Saint-Germain, what players on that team, have that kind of credentials besides, Donnarumma. I know that, Fabian Ruiz, I think he was on the Spanish team this past year, but it seems like the Inter team, they got a lot more experience and they played in these big games. And that's important. A young team in a big game, in a final, having a coach that knows how to manage a game. You let up a goal early, it's okay. You need that kind of experience between the players and the coach. It's very hard to win this kind of competition. So I think that's playing in Inter's favor. And so I go back to Inter really needs to win this game, and I hope they do. I don't know if I'm going to give a prediction. I think it's a 50-50. I see, points for both sides, Inter with the experience and, but then, you look at Paris Saint-Germain, it's a, up and coming team, young team. And, they've been in good form lately, but, it's kind of unfair when you think about it sometimes, because they play in this, I'm not trying to talk smack about the French league, but, they always win this league, and they, I think they've kind of been on cruise control in the league for, some time now. I don't know that they've had many games to actually, play into iron sharpens iron. I don't know how many games they've had to play, recently that really is gonna, test them. So I don't know. That's another thing that may be an Inter's advantage, that they've had a lot of games that, they've been battle tested. Barcelona, Bayern Munich in the Serie A, in the Coppa Italia. Inter is a different team this year in the Champions League. For some reason, they're leaking goals in Serie A, but in the Champions League, they were very solid up until recently. And they're very hungry. You know what I mean? Here's another crazy stat, guys. Here's another crazy stat. If you look at the Champions League, find me how much time Inter has been behind in the entire Champions League. Find me that. Find me it. They only lost one game against Bayern Leverkusen, and I think it was more of a rotated squad. It was away, and they scored in the last minute. Other than that, they didn't lose, and they haven't been behind. But besides the Barcelona game for like a couple minutes. So you're talking about a team that hasn't been behind in the whole competition, all these games. I mean, how many games were in the group stage? 8. Then they had to play 2, 4, 6. So you're talking about 14 games here. You're talking about 14 games that these guys have maybe been behind for like 10 minutes. That's phenomenal. Inter is a different animal in the Champions League. I think, and I said it at the beginning of the season, that these guys, they're not to be taken lightly. I've been saying it now for years that, I remember when they lost to Liverpool a couple years back when Inzaghi first took over. I said, this team is growing. It's growing. It's growing. And a lot of times these teams, they have, they have to go through the journey. You've seen it, with a lot of teams that win the Champions League. So, that's kind of where I'm at with this. So I see it as a 50-50 game. I'm praying that Inter can get it through. I think they got very good experience in very high level games. The coaching is great. They've also been a different animal and consistent all year in the Champions League, only being down for a couple minutes. PSG, on the other hand, they barely made it out of the group stage. And go look back at the results. The teams they've been most successful against are the English teams. Maybe, just maybe, that type of team, those type of, players, that type of strategy, the English, culture of football, maybe that suits them good. And so, anyways, that's all I got, man. We'll be doing a live stream Saturday for Inter versus Paris. I pray that they could bring the title home. It's been too long since Serie A has won a title in the Champions League. We've been there, but we've come up short against Manchester, and I know Juventus was there a couple times since 2010. So Forza Inter, and we'll see what happens. See you guys. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share. All right, we'll see you. Bye.